Welcome to FullToss Talk, where we bring cricket right to your screen. Here, our AI-generated hosts dive deep into cricketing action, analyze game moments, and explore the hottest stories from around the globe. Just a quick note, all the insights, updates, and gossips you hear are based on diverse articles and publicly available information. Our aim is to keep you informed and entertained, never to offend or misrepresent any team, player, or fan. So sit back, enjoy, and join us in celebrating the game we all love. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with more of our AI-powered cricket discussions.
All right, if you're listening to this, you're probably a cricket fan. But you want more than just scores and stats. You want like a historical deep dive. And today we're going to focus on one of cricket's biggest rivalries, the Border-Gavaskar Trophy.
Ah, yes. India versus Australia. Always a clash of titans. But there's something important to know if you're digging into the history.
Yeah, like what?
The Border-Gavaskar Trophy, it wasn't actually established as a thing until 1996.
So if you're searching for those really old matches pre-1996,
You gotta search for something else, like India versus Australia Test Series, not the trophy name.
that makes a huge difference.
Oh,
Okay, so for older records, that's tip number one.
Exactly. And get this, their first ever clash wasn't even an official test series.
Really? When was that?
Way back in 1935 to 36, it was a series of like these unofficial test matches, real hidden history there.
Wow, I bet not many people know about those.
Nope, not many. Now, the first official series, that took place in the 1947-48 season, right after India got independence.
So much history tied into this rivalry. Wow.
Right. And guess who captained Australia in that first official series?
Don Bradman.
The one and only Sir Donald Bradman. Australia won that series 4-0, by the way.
Of course they did.
Mm.
Okay, but fast forward to the modern Border-Gavaskar Trophy.
All right, so initially it was just a single test match.
Yep. Then it became a three-match series starting in the 97-98 season.
Right. And finally, it became what we know today, the 4-match series. That started in 2001.
So the format itself evolved over time. Something to keep in mind for research.
For sure. And when it comes to this rivalry, India's home advantage is pretty wild.
How so?
They've won 8 out of the 9 series held on Indian soil. Talk about a fortress.
8 out of 9. That's domination.
It is. Now, on the other side, Australia's won 4 out of 7 series held on their turf.
So it's not a totally one-sided affair?
Not at all, but winning away, that's huge in this rivalry.
Makes sense given those home advantages.
Exactly, like Australia's win in India back in 2004-05. Or India's wins in Australia in 2018-19 and 2020-21. Those were huge upsets.
Those are the ones you remember. The ones that make history. Speaking of, we have to talk about one of the most iconic Border-Gavaskar series ever. The 2001 series in India.
Oh man, so much drama. Australia was on fire coming in.
Right.
They were on a 16-match winning streak, totally crushed India in the first test.
Ouch, that must have been demoralizing.
But then Kolkata happened. The second test, VVS Laxman.
Legendary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
281 runs, a record for India at the time. Plus that partnership with Rahul Dravid, batting for a whole day, turning the match around.
And India won, right?
Won by a massive 171 runs after being forced to follow on, no less.
So those who don't know cricket, can you quickly explain a follow-on?
Sure, a follow-on happens when a team scores way fewer runs in the first innings. The other team can make them bat again right away. It's like saying, you guys were so bad, we're going to make you bat again right now.
Wow, okay, so huge pressure.
Big time. But Laxman and Dravid, they just shut it down. That victory shifted the whole series.
And then the third test.
Nail-biter, right down to the wire. India needed 155 runs to win, but they were losing wickets. Tension was insane.
I can only imagine.
And then Harbhajan Singh stepped up. Bowling, batting, everything secured that victory for India. What a finish. That's the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. Drama, upsets, and some of the most unforgettable performances in cricket history.
Man, talk about a series for the ages. You realize just how much there is to uncover in the history of the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. It's those moments that make it legendary.
It's true. Each series has its own story. And actually, speaking of turning points, India didn't win a test series in Australia until, get this, 2018-19.
You're kidding me. After all these years, that was their first win on Australian soil.
First ever. Took them over 70 years. And it was a convincing win, too. 2-1.
Wow, what a moment that must have been. And then
they did it again. 2020-21 series, another 2-1 victory, back-to-back wins.
unbelievable. Those series must be packed with incredible stories.
Oh, yeah. That 2020-21 series especially. Don't forget, India started with a crushing defeat in Adelaide.
Oh, right. Wasn't that historically bad?
Yeah, their lowest ever test score. 36 runs.
36. That's unheard of.
It was brutal. But then they came back and won the second test in Melbourne.
Talk about a turnaround.
Stand-in captain Ajinkya Rahane scored a brilliant century, led them to victory.
See, that's what champions do.
Exactly. And then they fought hard for a draw in Sydney, setting up a final showdown at the Gabba.
The Gabba. That's Australia's fortress? I thought for sure India was doomed.
Australia hadn't lost at the Gabba in over 30 years. The pressure was insane. And India had so many injuries, too.
How'd they pull it off?
They chased down 328 runs. On the final day, young Rishabh Pant played the innings of his life, 89 not out, unforgettable.
That must have been something else to watch. You know, this is why I love digging into history. You find these amazing stories.
Right, absolutely. Every series has those moments. So much resilience, so much individual brilliance. That's the Border-Gavaskar Trophy for you.
Okay, for someone who's starting their research, where do you even begin to find all this information?
Well, the internet's great for recent stuff, scores, match reports, all that. But if you're going deep, you gotta go old school.
Old school, like what, reading ancient scrolls and stuff?
Not quite that old school, but libraries and archives. Those are your gold mines.
You mean like physical places?
Yeah, the National Library of Australia, the Bradman Museum. In India, there's the National Archives of India, the BCCI Library. Those places are packed with history.
I can imagine old scorecards, newspaper clippings, maybe even some handwritten notes.
Exactly. You might even find letters, diaries from players back in the day. Real primary source stuff.
Wow, that would be amazing. Like stepping back in time.
It is. And don't forget to talk to people. Older cricket fans, former players, journalists who've seen it all. They have stories you won't find anywhere else.
True. Sometimes the best stories are the ones you hear in person.
Right. So yeah, the internet's a good start, but don't be afraid to dig deeper. Go where the real history lives.
Right, great advice. Now back to the content itself. What are some of the most interesting stats you've come across?
Well, Sachin Tendulkar's run total is mind-blowing. 3,262 runs in Border-Gavaskar Trophy matches.
Sachin, of course. The little master.
Oh, but he scored more in this trophy, 65 innings.
Incredible consistency. Okay, what about bowling records?
Nathan Lyon, the Australian spinner, he holds the record. Most wickets, 116, over 26 matches.
A true workhorse. Those are some impressive numbers.
They are. And here's a fun one. The Border-Gavaskar Trophy has only ever seen one tied test match.
A tie? Wow, that's rare. When was that?
1986-87 series in Madras. Just shows how closely matched these teams are.
Yeah, it's crazy. Speaking of close matches, remember that Kolkata test?
The one with the follow-on, how could I forget?
Well, that was only the third time in Test cricket history that a team won after following on.
Yeah, talk about defying the odds. A real testament to the spirit of the game.
This is really making me appreciate the Border-Gavaskar Trophy in a new way. It's like a living history book.
I think you've got it.
Yeah.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So much to discover. And we've only scratched the surface.
Right. It's, like you said, the Border-Gavaskar Trophy is more than just a series. It's almost like this, like a chronicle of cricket history itself.
It really is. It's evolved so much over the years, from just one match to this massive event.
It really shows you the connection between these two countries, India and Australia, how sport can bring people together despite differences.
That's a good point. And it adds so much weight to those victories. It's not just about winning a game. It's like about national pride.
Absolutely. And think about all the memories, the close calls, the amazing individual performances. It's all part of the story, the history of these two nations, all wrapped up in this trophy.
I think our listener has a great starting point now. We've given them context, research tips, some legendary stories.
And hopefully they realize just how much depth there is to this. It's not just surface level stuff.
But what about the future? Where do you think this rivalry is headed?
Oh, I think the future is bright. Both teams have so much young talent. I mean, we've already seen glimpses in recent series. So many exciting players coming up.
I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on them. See how they shape the future of the Border-Gavaskar Trophy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And cricket itself is always evolving. New formats, new innovations. But I think the Border-Gavaskar Trophy will adapt.
It has to, right? It's like one of the cornerstones of Test cricket.
Exactly. It represents the heart of the sport.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Border-Gavaskar Trophy.
It's been a great journey. Hopefully our listener feels inspired to keep digging, keep learning. There's so much more to discover.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning. So to everyone listening, Happy hunting.
So that was it for today. Thanks for tuning into FullToss Talk. We hope you enjoyed our AI-driven chat on all things cricket. Remember, these discussions are sourced from different articles and aim to capture the spirit of the game without hurting anyone's sentiments. If you love cricket as much as we do, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode. Here's to more thrilling cricket and endless conversation. See you in the next video.